This is a different type of show this morning. Um, it takes me sort of back, the old New York, the old New York. When I first moved back to East Harlem, which was 1979, 79, going into 1980, the world was different. Heroin was a big thing. That was the one of the main drugs in the street. Plus PCP. I had marijuana, you had Quaaludes, and all the other weird names and strange things that was going on. Back then in the streets, I gotta give you what the streets was looking like a little bit. There's a lot of a lot of homelessness, a lot of Vietnam vets you actually seen outside. And these guys, a lot of them guys had the habits, the heroin habits. Well, my mom's, before she moved to Queens, she lived on 130th Street. She ran around with a bunch of revolutionaries. But she grew up in the era that heroin was like, and of course, everybody would say the party drug was popping. The party drug at that time was the white stuff. That was and probably most likely like PCPs, things like that, things of those natures. You know what I'm saying? Acid, mescalines. We're not going to the whole say no to drugs thing. But so as I'm going back into my thoughts, because I was thinking about something that Dapper Dan said. Dapper Dan did an interview, and I think he mentioned somebody last name Jackson. So I'm looking for the name Jackson. I said, who the hell is this guy talking about? And then something hit. Boom. The great story of Shameeka. Now, we all go by the story that Nicky Barnes sent Guy Fisher to jail for messing with Shameeka, which is the truth. He really did. He actually admits it. But he also sent a guy in the mob to jail for the rest of his life in like 1988. And that was the man who actually put the hit out on her and had her and I believe her brother murdered. Now, what does this tie into this show? What it ties into this show is on the title, Nicky Barnes, what do they have in common? Shameeka and Pistol Pete, Leonard Pistol Pete Rollack. Pistol Pete Rollack was getting money with the dudes that allegedly killed Shameeka. One of the guys that killed Shameeka, he was tied into a ring, a drug ring. I'm gonna read the receipts. That was dealing with the guy, the individual, the mob guy, who got paranoid. Not really paranoid because Nicky Barnes really told. And he's the guy who put the hit out on Shameeka when he heard that Nicky Barnes was cooperating. Which Nicky Barnes really was cooperating. Um, it goes back into the times of old Harlem. It goes back into the time of the no snitching campaign. Seriously, this is when you couldn't be a snitch. This is when if they thought you was telling, you was off the map. Shameeka wasn't telling. Nicky was telling. She died, and I believe her brother died because Nicky was telling. Now, there were definitely 40 Wolves in the building. Nobody really brings up that, yeah, he told on Guy Fisher over Shameeka, but believe me, he told on Mark Ryder, the mob guy, just as well over Shameeka in 88, because he testified at his trial. I'm going to read the receipts, though. It was a different time. Um, these guys was really, the mob guy, he was in the mob, mobbed up. This is when the mafia controlled probably 80% of the heroin that was flowing through the five boroughs, as in for distribution purposes. Let me get to the early receipts. Now, this is 1988. The supplier of a Harlem-based East Coast heroin distribution. Now, the weird part about this is that they mentioned, this is 88. The supplier of a Harlem-based East Coast heroin distribution ring and four others were convicted Thursday in the federal court of drug racketeering conspiracy. Now, the weird part about this is Pistol Pete's father, co-defendant, was this mob figure that was getting dudes knocked off if he thought you was telling. At the trial, testimony showed the racketeering enterprise included 7 members, 7 murders, and operated in Harlem, the Bronx, Bridgeport, Connecticut, Washington D.C., and Boston. Now, have you ever noticed? Now, look at this. There was at one point in time, I believe, a large presence of sex money murder in Bridgeport, Connecticut, or at least a large influence. Now, I always believe because of the hard situation. No, it's always been a New York influence in Bridgeport, Connecticut since the 70s. You know what I'm saying? Racketeering enterprise included 7 murders and operated in Harlem, the Bronx, Bridgeport, Connecticut, Washington, D.C., and Boston. U.S. Attorney at that time, who became the mayor, Rudolph Giuliani, called the convictions very significant and said the supplier, Mark Ryder, was a major heroin distributor operating at a high level with organized crime, meaning the Gambino family, reputedly headed by John Gotti. Giuliani said each of the defendants faced possibilities that ranged from 15 years to life in prison. A jury found Ryder, Raymond Clark, Leonard Rollack, Timothy Smith, and Alfred Dix guilty of 13 counts after 3 days of deliberations. So, Pistol Pete, blood, sex money murder, father, ran with the mob. You know what I'm saying? And like I told you, it's a different time. Now again, we watch these movies, we hear these tales, but this is serious. This was the era that I grew up under. This is not a hip hop tale, this ain't graffiti, this is a serious time. Dudes was making a lot of real money. And Pistol Pete's father was a part of this. Ryder was charged with selling more than $10 million worth of heroin to James Jackson. James Jackson wound up telling. And that's the name I was looking for because I believe that's the name that Dapper Dan said in the interview. His man James Jackson, something Jackson. But James Jackson's told. He actually told in this case. So I had to wait a minute. Because I heard the name back in the days of Jackson. But I kept saying Jack Jackson, John Jackson. Then it went to, oh, boom, that's Sunday. That's what made me do it. So shout out to Dapper Dan because you made me do this research. So actually, you see how he never called John Jackson a rat. But I had nothing to do with that. I'm saying maybe I may have the wrong name. I couldn't find an interview, but there was an interview and he's mentioned somebody was buying clothes from him. You know what I'm saying? Somebody who inspired him. Now, James Jackson, who pleaded guilty to running the ring and faces up to 45 years in prison, he testified at the nearly 4-month trial. Ryder faces the maximum of life for running a continuing criminal enterprise. The trial was presided by Judge Richard Owen, who put Wilmer Grief, the attorney for Timothy Smith, in jail for 2 nights for being late for trial for the umpteenth time and refusing his order to report to court. He suspended his order for her to spend 7 nights in the same lockup where her client was staying last Friday, saying he hoped she learned her lesson. That's where it starts at the case. Now, this is Mark Ryder, the mob guy gets caught up. His co-defendants, one of his co-defendants is Pistol Pete's father. Now, what is this time to Nicky Barnes, y'all will say? The Nicky Barnes, what does it do with this? Because the guy Mark Ryder is the guy who allegedly put their head out on Shameeka. You know what I'm saying? So now look, in 1988, because believe me, Nicky Barnes was telling in the beginning, right before 88, he came to gloriously testify against a man who yep, because he murdered Shameeka. So he really did love her. He really did love Shameeka. He really loved her. Salute. Yo, he really loved Shameeka. We got it. Yo, Nicky Barnes really loved Shameeka. He told him the guy who he believed having sex with her, and then he also told him the guy Now, mind you, I don't know how much he loved his wife because he's sent to the jail for dying for playing with Tito Johnson. You know what I'm saying? But that might have just been out of, I think it's a game when you going to jail. But technically, Nicky Barnes, you know what I'm saying? He really loved her. Now, the stories of Shameeka and the mafia, but now this is the guy, Mark Ryder, who they say a lot of his victims was dudes that he heard was cooperating, that he heard that was cooperating. Like I said, Shameeka wasn't telling, Nicky was. But that's how the mob played back then. So the street codes that some of us speak about is probably from my generation when we thought you was telling you was off the map. But they remember a lot of the mafia had a lot of police on the payroll. So they was able to get information, not gossip, not speculation or temptation. They was able to get, yo, such and such pulled up to the federal building the other day. A lot of these, because they had a lot of cops who would pay. This is you got dirty cops every era, but this is the super dirty cop era. So when you hear yo Nicky Teller, I'm a send a sign. So this is so crazy because I'm gonna read some more. I got some more receipts for you, party people. This is old New York right here. Now, like I said, I'm giving you the dramatics. It's a procession. Start from the beginning. You know, 88 was different because remember, you're talking about an 88 case, but what was going on in 88 also, the crack era. The crack era was still full of swing. Yeah, salute. I'm saying she wasn't hiding. She was outside. She stood outside to the day she died. She was outside, you heard? Now this is, we ain't going to the mob guy, right? Now Pistol Pete's father. So now we have to understand where did Pistol Pete get his principles from? His pops. His pops, the upbringing. If his father was running with organized crime, believe me, a lot of the individuals his father grew up around was still not on that type of time. So now it makes sense how he just copped out. Now things are making sense out the way he was making moves and the way he was, now it really makes sense to this generation. Why would he become blood, become the leader? Because to him it was organized. It was some type of organization. He was doing it in the street, but with this, people want to be a part of something that's every generation is different. That's just it's the fascination. Even some gangster niggas just look at this gang shit as we hopping these whips. That's why you'd be surprised. There's a lot of good names that was a part of this, the revolutionary era. Not the gangbanging era, but the revolutionary era. We well versed there. Shout out to Moshe, one of the great revolutionaries. You got gangbangers and then you got the revolutionaries. Those are two different type of New York bloods. Just to be clear, you got the gangbangers and you got the revolutionaries. You know what I'm saying? Man, dude was a revolutionary. Moshe. The revolutionaries fight against the police, against in practice. You know what I'm saying? They fight against the administration. They go against the people. Back to Peter Rollack. So now, as I'm reading this, I'm going, yo, that's the generation I grew up in. You know, I was a young kid. You 8 years old. Remember, we had the Lincoln Continental too. Those was big. We see a dude come up with the pick. This is when Park Ave, the L had the hookers out there. It was crazy. But there was a lot of ham on. There was a lot of ham on still on these dirty, minty streets. Y'all keep talking about Boy George. Again, you see who these dudes' plugs was. So then it makes sense to the cozy corner conversations in Soundview. Shout out to my man Fast, because he will always talk about, yeah, we go to Soundview, cozy corner, the OGs, so the dudes in their 50s going on their 60s. I got some more receipts though here. Now, I'm gonna tell you who the guy Mark Ryder is. Here we go. Because he's trying to be free. Okay. Mark Ryder went to trial on May 2nd, 1988. The evidence against him included the testimony of numerous cooperating witnesses, including Leroy Nicky Barnes, James Jackson, who testified, among other things, that Ryder had supplied him with many kilograms of pure heroin, and that Ryder had personally ordered the murders of Beverly and Stephen Ash after learning that Nicky Barnes had begun to cooperate with authorities. Listen, he just heard Nicky was telling and sent the threat. Salvador Corralo also testified, among other things, that his responsibilities were to test packaged heroin, weigh heroin, deliver kilogram quantities of heroin, and collect cash from the sales of those heroin dealers. Now, this is the man that was actually charged. See, this is the man that was actually charged with killing Shameeka. That actually put the hit out. You see, Nicky Barnes testified against that. Yep, those are the days. That the Bonita and that quinine era, you know what I'm saying? We gotta start putting this fentanyl shit in your day. Now, I'm gonna tell you, I read Nicky Barnes' book. I read his book. His book is very interesting, very well versed, very detailed. Um, you got a chance to see Mr. Untouchable, go read it. See, I think we're misconstruing the no ratting. See, the era we grew up in, we gotta look at it a different glass. Like I said, if you heard somebody was telling from a reliable source, which is most likely law enforcement, people acted off that. Two dudes was dying, you see? But Nicky Barnes really was telling. So they had reliable sources that was law enforcement that would go listen. Nicky telling, we heard your name such and such. Now who's Mark Ryder? We are gonna go into who he is and what did he play a part of or who he ran with. He ran with the Gambinos. He was at one point in time Gene Gotti's co-defendant. You know what I'm saying? When he got caught with the hammer. And a lot of these mob figures that was getting caught up, the guys that were selling the hammer was African Americans. But again, you see that even that went down with that case. See, they wasn't chasing blacks, they was chasing the Italians, and they put the blacks in it. I think one of the only two at that point in time that was major blacks that got caught their own fair case probably was Nicky Barnes and Frank Lucas, but definitely Nicky. But Nicky went too far. He wanted to be on the cover of Time magazine, so he really asked for it. You know what I'm saying? He asked for his consequences. You know what I'm saying? Now, growing up in the era that I grew up in when I was young, I seen a lot of things. There was a lot of poverty in New York City. I can't speak about your city because I was in the city. I wasn't in Queens no more. I was in East Harlem, Spanish Harlem. There was a large Spanish and Italian presence in the area I lived in. Because I lived by 114th, going towards Wagner. You know about Pleasant, First Avenue, Patsy's, Delightfuls. But before Manhattan Center, it was called Benjamin Franklin High School. You know. So we're talking about a different time, a different era. It was the hip hop culture growing, but it was still a lot of hammer on the streets. You know, like blocks like 116th and Lexington. Like that always been a drug block. Don't believe that BTM shit was the first time that there was drugs over there. Lexington Avenue always been crazy. Lex that always been wild. You know what I'm saying? And Nicky Barnes was looked at as the god. I mean, he was the Jay-Z of hustlers. I mean, even the hustlers, even after he told dudes just because they knew him, they attached their war stories to Nicky. You You know what I'm saying? They would always attach their war stories to Nicky Barnes. Like, yeah, I was messing with Nicky, I was in this club and that club. So Nicky was the life of the party. You know what I'm saying? Even some of our uncles or loose cousins, older G's, would always attach their war stories to Nicky Barnes, even though he snitched, even though he told. They will always attach their story to Nicky. Now, growing up as poor kids, right? We would see the pimps, we would see the Shameeka, but in our Shameeka name has been in a lot of our lives. W. Shoot's my favorite Puerto Rican, since we was kids. Because this is what the old niggas, OGs was talking about. They'll have a conversation about Shameeka. Yo, Shameeka, that was Nicky Adada, the bars that was on Fifth Avenue, Sugar Hill. Like, the heroin trade created a world for African Americans that was getting money. That be shouts from my man Double Law, you heard? And you may watch a movie called Sugar Hill. That gives you a brief detail of how the game was being played and how the Italians was in the mix. The mafia was in the mix. Okay. Now we seen two type of coaches growing up. We seen the hookers, we seen the pimps on Park Avenue by the L, and it was the heroin dealers. And it's funny because at a time of no hope of recessions, minimum wage $4 or $5, unemployment rate was on an all-time high. To be in the streets was how some dudes really felt they fed their families. Being a stick-up kid at that point in time was how dudes fed their families. So it was looking, New York City was looking like World War III. You know what I'm saying? And they never mentioned that he told on the old boy. They always talk about that he told on such and such Guy Fisher for Shameeka. But believe me, he definitely told on Mark for killing Shameeka. Now here go how the rules of engagement is though. He killed people that was in the life of his life or life that was in his life. But a lot of probably 2 or 3 of the homicides was people that was not directly in the game. You know what I'm saying? In the game. Like I told you, that Shameeka murder and her brother was just to send a warning to Nicky. But that might have been, but those 2 homicides of all 7 might be the 2 that's keeping him in jail. You know what I'm saying? Because remember, he's in jail for actually killing people, allegedly killing people that he thought was cooperating against him. He's actually a threat. You know what I'm saying? Not too many people got 2, 3, and few got homicides over, you tell him to kill your brother. He lived off of those principles. You know what I'm saying? I grew up in Spanish Harlem. I lived in Queens, just to be clear. I grew up in Spanish Harlem. My family's from Spanish Harlem, specifically Taft Projects. My grandmother's first generation. She's one of the first families that moved in Taft. You know what I'm saying? I moved to East, so I'm actually from Spanish Harlem. It's just I lived in different sides of Spanish Harlem. I lived on 117th Street. I lived on 114th Street, and I moved to 99. All that's Spanish Harlem. But that's where I'm specifically from. That's my home. I could walk from Wagner to my block, no problem. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Now, Nicky passed away. He was in Minnesota working for Walmart. This is crazy. Nicky, rest in peace, Nicky Barnes. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to say somebody probably can video. Why would you say rest in peace to a rat? But that rat name has been in our names. If you got uncles that was in the street, they'll attach themselves to that rat. You know what I'm saying? As crazy as it sounds. Yeah, Nicky was getting all the money. Yo, Nicky was doing this, Nicky was doing that. This is what dudes will argue with you about. I hit my IG. Yo, hit my IG. Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait a minute. You said from 100th Street between 1st and 2nd. So you know Jay Slade, JJ. I used to be with JJ in the D. Depends how old you was. I used to be around JJ. You know, rest in peace, JJ. Papa used to be on that block. That's Papa's block, right? That was Papa's block for all those years. Shouts to my man Mo. You know, I'm chasing all of that. I'm 49. I don't know how old you are, but you're probably a little older than me. So you have an idea. Actually, a certain person over there, my man, allegedly his father, his pop supposed to be Nicky Barnes, one of his brothers. One of his brothers supposed to be Nicky, whatever. Boom. Small world. You said 100 Street first and second. So this depends on how old you are. You know what I'm saying? But definitely my IG is See Black Feed the Wolves. You know what I'm saying? But I'm from Lex, Wash. You know what I'm saying? That's where I actually began. That's where I lived. That's when I became a teenager, started writing graffiti. All that shit started back then on that block. But being younger, I got a chance to see things. You know what I'm saying? Now this is crazy. Definitely. Now this is the unique part. Definitely shout out to Frank Matthews. Definitely salute him. He actually beat the system, got away with his millions. You know what I'm saying? Smart guy. See, we talking about the era of dirty cops. Now y'all thought it was dirty cops doing the whole Larry Davis situation. We talking about the dirty cop era back then. Now, one of the unique tales about this is that these dudes was getting a lot of money, a lot of paper. But again, the smart guy, definitely Vic was popping. He was knocking off people he thought was telling. A lot of his homicides was based off of those type of techniques. Like Shameeka. Shameeka died. Now the funny part is, yep, Coco, yep. And Coco, facts. Exactly. So you older than me, you know Poodle and JJ, you know. You know what I'm saying? Facts. JJ, look at my projects. Yeah. I'm gonna show you a picture, I'm gonna make you laugh, man. I'm gonna make you laugh, brother. Yeah, Coco. You know what I'm saying? You owed me, so you was there for all that, man. You was around it. You was out there the Papa Guy generation and all that, man. Earl Duncan and all that, man. You was out there the generation way before me. You was out there with you know what I'm saying? 'Cause I'm 49, so you was definitely out there at a different time on 100th Street. It was different. When you had the Jimmy Cocos and on 3rd Ave, shout out to my man Sace and all of. And they all was in the D and all that. Yeah, you was outside for all that. See, we was the little niggas watching y'all niggas. You know what I'm saying? We was the young niggas watching y'all. You know what I'm saying? It was a different time. You know what I'm saying? We was the young niggas watching y'all. Because that block always been that niggas block, 100th Street. I don't give a fuck what generation. Probably now it's different because Papa got all that time. But that block always been 100th Street. Always been known as Papa's block. You know what I'm saying? She's small world, bro. Always known as Papa's block. No as I knew. Yep. But see, yep, his brothers, yep. And they actually looked at my projects. I think one of the brothers had owned a restaurant with Hakeem is Poodle's brother. My man Hakeem, see, me and Hakeem grew up together too. Hakeem is Poodle's brother. They had a restaurant on Fifth Avenue called El Mondays. I don't know which brother it was. It was one of them brothers that owned it. Yeah, it was over there like around like 2000. Well, I came out here. But my man Hakeem, they own the spots. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? But White Park was crazy. That shit on 96th Street, that shit on 96th was crazy. Yeah, 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 Poodle. I got a picture, an old picture. Probably take you way back. See, we was the young niggas that was used that used to come through there and all that. We'll find this one, man. Yeah. Definitely, rest in peace to my man Shop and all that. That's all that shit about the sanitation shit. You know, right on the block, you had the sanitation layers. But I'm gonna tell you, see, he 53. He was out there when he seen that hammer on shit go different. When he seen this, that shit was different. For that crack era shit, that shit was wild, man. Like Taino always been like, to me, playing tag, Taino, that whole area always been hammer on. 116th, always been hammer on addicts. You know what I'm saying? Like certain blocks, you always just see mad dope fiends. But it goes to show how tied in at that point in time the mob was, the Italians was. You know what I'm saying? It is what they go show. Now, the weird part about this, I got a couple of good more, I got a couple of more good ones. Yeah, Tone Lopez. Ah, see, there it is. Man, Kenny Black. Kenny Black locked up. He in the feds now, playing with Binghamton. Yeah, Kenny, yeah, Tone Lopez. Facts. You know what I'm saying? See, I was with Ian White and all of them. You know what I'm saying? Oh, yeah, your man over there. That double shout out to my man Frank White, that being a D. My man Wiggs and all of them. Let me see this picture if I got it. Take it back to the old school, man. I'm gonna bring you back. Cause Tone, remember, this be on my block, Superman, Ed, and all of you. I'm from the Hill. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You took it. You got that Hill Hall. I remember when they used to be on that block, rest in peace, Veeam. They used to be on 3rd Ave. When that Chinese restaurant was popping and all that. So double shout out to Randy Love Walker. Randy Walker. Rest in peace to Randy Love Walker, my man Randy. Randy was a nut, man. I'm gonna show you some flicks, man. I'm gonna take you back. See, this is JJ and Poodle. This is JJ and Poodle. Rest in peace, both of them. You know what I'm saying? This is my block right here, but that's Ed Superman and that's Tone Lopez. On my block. Same block. This is me and my man's my block, my man Woods Avenue, you know. It's the same block. That's a piece Harry. Yeah, I remember Gerald. That's Tone Lopez and JJ on my block. That's a piece J. Yeah. Yep, Gerald. You know what I'm saying? I remember Gerald. Gerald was out there. And he had that's when we was little niggas playing basketball with Poochie and all of them. I think Butchie, what's his name? Butchie? I think Butchie, I think that's Hatchie and them family, right? The Fleming, whatever that. I think one of them is, they all like family. Shout out to my man Yule and all of them. I don't know if Yule's their family, but yeah, he had an older brother. He had an older brother named Gerald. You know what I'm saying? See how small the, yeah, we all grew up together. A lot of us grew up together. Because JJ passed away at a dice game, you know what I'm saying? See, this is me and Hakeem. You grew up together, it's me and Ha. That's actually, brother, your man's and all them. I'm in Porto, my man Willie Woo. Everybody loves Willie Woo. It's my guy right there. Everybody loves Willie Woo. My man Scar. But you know, it was different, see? I'm happy you here. It was different. See, my generation was the Krills flow. I'm August 29th, you heard? You know what I'm saying? I grew up in the Krills flow. You know what I'm saying? So the Krills flow was, back then, you had 100th Street. Yeah, yeah. They had that 100 Street. That 100 Street shipping was ringing. That shit was whoosh, whoosh. That shit was ringing. That's how I sucked all that damn time. That last one he had to get him all that goddamn time. They said somebody said allegedly he up north going at it. Him and Randy Love was going through it over some, I don't know, but I don't know how true that is. Somebody said that Randy Love and Papa was having some issues up north. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, Willie Woo said that. Some man Willie Woo. You know what I'm saying? Now remember, we was greater generation younger than you. It was the flow. Now, now when we started playing tag outside, me and my man started putting our heads in the surfaces. I remember there used to be this chick in my project. She was getting money. You might know her name is Nicky. Allegedly, her name was Nicky. I gotta say allegedly, but her name was Nicky. She was like sort of tomboyish. You know what I'm saying? She's being my project, so she's like one of the first people that had whatever in my projects before everything just trickled down. You know what I'm saying? But my block was, my block is a very unique block. Now, to say the least, growing up in that, my IG is Zeke Black Feed the Wolves. You know what I'm gonna do? It's late. I just take it. I'm gonna put my number in here. Write my number down. You heard? How much time you just did? Yo, how much time you just did? You said you just came home, right? My number in here, right? All right, just take. All right, write that number down. I'm gonna take it out the thing, though. But write that number down. You heard? Yeah. All right, you got the number? Just write the number down. Is there no way you got the number down? I can just take the number off the thing, though. You got the number? You just text me. You know what I'm saying? But this is like a different. It's about a different level. Like I said, when I was growing up on the east side, you know what I'm saying? Because it was like I lived on 117 with the Vietnam vets, the garbage cans. Gotcha. All right, I'll take this. All you gotta do is text me, brother. You know what I'm saying? All you gotta do is text me. Now I'm in the Midwest, so just remember I'm always an hour off because I'm in St. Louis. But text me. Now this is the part that's unique. Is that the guy, the same guy who allegedly put the hit out. Now, like I told you, you had the no snitching campaign was different back then. See now, remember, you gotta keep in mind these guys had inside. They had FBI agents. They had cops. They had they had somebody that would go, listen, I heard such and such and such a state, whatever. They had their ways to get information who they thought was telling, and they was knocking motherfuckers off. If they couldn't get you, they was touching something that you loved, so you'll get the message. See, that was the snitching campaign, the no telling campaign, a generation before me. You know what I'm saying? Now you gotta produce the paperwork, have this long conversation, and get crazy. Back then, they had inside tracks. A lot of you dudes that hustle, for some reason, y'all be so anti-police that you don't want to pay the police. So now y'all be so anti-police, you don't have your ears to the next drug bust. That's why a lot of these guys, you hear these weird stories. How was he selling 300 keys of heroin? Because they had an inside track, the police. And it may cost you twos and fews a couple of racks, but that kept you, let me shut down for a while. Let me get low. You see? Damn. So you just did 25. Damn, you just back to back? Damn. Sheesh. Phew. Damn. You caught that shit on the east side? Sheesh. No home, Rock City home, man. Rock is home. A bunch of niggas is home. But it's crazy, man. You know what I'm saying? Just looking at, yo, just when you think about even having a Shameeka conversation, that was deep, because that's what stories you hear all day. Shameeka and boom, 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 and you got Fisher and Apollo, and you hear, and it's like Nicky Barnes, he created this weird, and it's weird because he told a lot of motherfuckers, man. Think about it. He told on the guy who was having sex with her, and then he also told on the guy who murdered her, who allegedly put their head out to get her killed. That's ill. That's lovely than a motherfucker. If anything else, he testified to get that nigga back. You know what I'm saying? Now, let me see if I got some more. I got some more receipts here. Let's get to the dirty receipts, man. Now, Guy Fisher, the good brother, he gets caught up. Hold on. I got some audio.
Most people have heard of the Apollo Theater. It's legendary in Harlem and around the world. What most people don't know is that there were times when its survival was far from guaranteed. In the 1970s, the Apollo shut down for more than 2 years. It turns out the story of who saved the Apollo and how is just as legendary. Picture this. It's May 5th, 1978, and the Apollo is finally reopening. Harlem is thrilled. The theater's iconic marquee hovers over the sidewalk in the misty rain. It's lit up with the name of the percussionist who will perform that night.
Wow, I can't believe it.
Limousines line. Erwin never really went away.
1977, agents arrested Nicky and the rest of the council, including Guy. He'd done his 18 months for trying to bribe those cops, so he was out of prison and back at work, selling drugs. And now, on trial.
A journalist from the Village Voice described the scene at the courthouse. The 15 defendants were by and large an attractive bunch. They were all young, slim, and clean cut, except for Fat Stevie Monsanto, who was fat and dirty. And in their spotless tube socks and bright new Pro-Keds, they looked like an unbeaten college basketball team. Guy Fisher, who was supposed to be Nicky's most treasured lieutenant and a very tough customer, wore cashmere sweaters and shiny loafers and looked like the 1959 valedictorian at Howard University. This is the first case where the jury was made anonymous for their protection.
Wally was sentenced to 8 years in prison. Nicky got a triple life term.
But Guy actually walked away free. His lawyers argued that he couldn't have been involved in the crimes being tried because he was in jail at the time. It was an argument that persuaded the jury, but only barely. The jury was hung, but the prosecution was satisfied.
We knew we had less evidence against him, and we were so happy at the conviction of Barnes that it really didn't bother us. And then, normally with a hung jury, sometimes you can retry. We didn't even retry Guy Fisher. I mean, we didn't want to go through all that again just for one guy, and then we had to put our witnesses on again, and you never know what's going to happen.
So they let it go for the time being. And Guy must have felt that he had a new lease on life. Guy discussed it later in an essay he wrote. Realizing how lucky I was, I decided to give something back to my people to make amends for my past deeds. My man don't know. Shameeka was his girlfriend.
Every time we read about the council, Shameeka was mentioned as a side piece, the woman that got between Nicky and Guy. But pictures of her showed a vibrant, beautiful young woman.
In one photo we found, Shameeka poses in a pair of shiny black pumps, one hand on her hip, one hand behind her head. She's wearing a knitted white cap and it covers her braids, which have decorative beads at the ends. Her earrings are gold and fancy. They frame her face. And she's glowing. She looks really happy.
Shameeka's birth name was Beverly Ash. She grew up in the Manhattanville projects in Harlem. Shameeka met Nicky when she was 19. She was in college. Shameeka hung out at the Monarch Bar in Washington Heights, where the council did business.
Larry Prelo was a young gay man from Brooklyn. He and his friends had taken to breaking into department stores to support themselves. One day, they went up to the Monarch Bar to sell their loot.
So the first night I met her, they bought everything we had. And she said, I want you to meet my husband.
The husband Shameeka is talking about, Nicky Barnes. He wasn't really her husband, but that's how she saw him. This was before Nicky went to prison, when he was still Mr. Untouchable. Larry says Shameeka enjoyed the lifestyle she got from associating with Nicky.
Shameeka had apartments that she just kept clothes in. Her shoes, her fur coats. Shameeka had a fur coat for every day of the week.
Larry and Shameeka became fast friends. Larry had founded the House of Ebony. Houses were networks of chosen families for Black and Latino queer youth. They held underground drag balls. Different houses competed in categories for money and for clout. The ballroom was like a party, a performance, and a competition, all rolled into one. Larry invited Shameeka to walk in a ball. We found the footage from that night. In the video, Shameeka...
This is deep, man, but I can't play the music, so I have to cut over certain parts. This is deep, man. This is the disco era, you know what I'm saying? This is that era, that disco, that funk, this is that era, man.
That night, she won Best Dressed Woman. Shameeka was now officially an Ebony girl.
Shameeka was a beautiful woman every day, but she was a gangster at night.
Shameeka worked alongside the council in the drug trade, so...
Once Nicky got locked up, Shameeka was the queen of the throne. You know, you had the kingpin, now you got the queen.
We wondered why Shameeka and Guy Fisher would take such a risk, start sleeping together, when they must have known that if Nicky found out, he'd be livid. Especially because, according to Larry, Shameeka was in love with Nicky, or at least with his lifestyle.
Eventually, someone tipped off Nicky in prison about Guy and Shameeka. Here's ghostwriter Tom Folsom again.
You're talking about some classic kind of Machiavelli stuff. It's like, don't outshine the master.
It was a love triangle that would erupt into a devastating end for Guy and for Shameeka.
They were a couple of friends of mine that were supposed to be doing things for me, you know.
That's Nicky Barnes in a phone call with a deputy U.S. attorney. There were a couple of friends of mine, he tells him, that were supposed to be doing things for me.
Yeah, and well, they're doing things against me, really.
And they're doing things against me, really.
Mm-hmm.
Nicky's explaining why, in 1982, he decided to turn state's witness against the council while in prison.
And I have no way to reach out to get to them, and I want to get back at them, really.
Mm-hmm.
That's my primary reason.
It was the only way to get back at them, he said.
Nicky gave the government a long list of names, including Shameeka and Guy Fisher. Guy, who he saw as a son. Nicky even ratted out his wife, the mother of his 2 young daughters. Years later, in a phone interview with New York Magazine, Nicky elaborated on why he did what he did.
As far as Guy Fisher was concerned, I said, Guy Fisher, I gave him a woman of mine that I expected him to look out for, and I expected him to take care of her. I didn't expect him to start fucking her. I don't know why he had the bonus, and then I don't know why the other council members let him live after they knew he did it. When I realized that they left me on the battlefield to die, you know, I just said, no, I'll pull them over in here with me. I'll pull them in here with me and let them see what it's like. No, I don't regret that. I would rather be out here than to be in there with them.
When Nicky cooperated, he spilled everything. He testified about Guy's time in the council. Philip Douglas was a federal prosecutor in the case. In 1983, he brought Guy Fisher to trial again. Nicky and another informant testified that Guy had personally committed several murders. Nicky said that one time, in '76, Guy shot someone at such close range that the victim's clothes caught on fire.
I remember that because it's just as that testimony was coming in, one juror seemed to be physically disturbed, and we had to adjourn the trial so that she could recover, as I remember. I think there was another murder as well where this person was accused of being an informant, and Guy Fisher shot him while he was begging for his life.
But the jury ended up acquitting Guy on the murder charge. All the evidence was hearsay. Neither man claimed to have actually seen the events take place. Yet Fisher's lawyers argued that they both had reason to lie. But the jury did find Guy guilty of crimes relating to operating a narcotics conspiracy. And under the new drug and racketeering laws, he got the mandatory sentence: life. Philip Douglas remembers his sentencing hearing.
Mr. Fisher stood up and addressed the court, and he spoke to me directly, and he said, Mr. Douglas, don't sit waiting by the phone for a call from me to cooperate. I'm never going to call you. And I remember thinking, I really don't care. Well, of course, that's how the government makes these kinds of cases against criminal organizations, is people cooperating. So that would have been good, but I just spent the better part of a year of my life, basically 7 days a week on this case. And I just, and I was exhausted. And so I wasn't like sitting around hoping he would give a call, that's for sure. And of course, he never did cooperate.
When Nicky Barnes snitched, the Italian drug suppliers were furious. They blamed Shameeka. She was out on bail waiting for her trial.
She stopped coming to the balls and stuff. She didn't want to be in crowds and stuff. She was just scared.
On December 13th, 1982, a man went into the council's hangout spot, the Monarch Bar. He wore all black, except for a white mask that covered his face. Shameeka was there, sitting on a stool. The man shot her 3 times in the head and neck at close range, killing her. She was 27. According to court records, a hitman known to be used by the Italian mob was the shooter. Larry from the House of Ebony remembers being in Harlem for her funeral.
They closed the streets. They had Shameeka on a carriage.
Tom Folsom, the ghostwriter of Nicky's autobiography, says that Nicky idealized Shameeka and was probably in love with her. But still, he doesn't remember Nicky expressing sadness about her death. But Nicky did speak angrily about Guy, his former protege.
I remember one time I had some fruit on the table, and he grabbed like a mango and Nicky, and he started eating it like a apple, just like biting into it. And he's like talking about Guy and just like devouring this mango. And it's like a thing had clicked in his head, and he just goes off, right? That was when I would hang out with Nicky, and he got sort of scary when he would talk about Guy. Yeah, that anger was there, and you could, and I'm like, oh yeah, this guy I could see how Nicky would kill somebody. It's like, oh, Nicky's going off the deep end here a little bit, even though he's an old man at that point. Now, I guess that begs the question, is this Nicky's true feelings, or has he built this narrative up in his head so much that it's his justification for snitching?
We'll probably never know. Nicky Barnes died in 2012 while he was in the witness protection program.
Guy Fisher served his term at a series of prisons around the country. We tracked down a fellow inmate of his. Kanan Tatro described how Guy would react when the subject of Nicky would come up.
like legend stories right here. So one day we in the chow hall, which is the kitchen where you go eat, right? So I'm like, yo, guy, man, why you ain't eating your pizza? He's taking the cheese off the pizza. This is what he doing, right? He's taking the cheese. I'm like, God, why you ain't eating the cheese? He like, cause Nicky ate the cheese. That's why I don't eat cheese. Ooh, I must stop laughing. So I'm like, yo, I asked him, I'm like, yo, if Nicky walked through the door right now, what you gonna do? He like, I'm gonna turn the other way and walk the other way. I'm like, you wanna do nothing physical to him? I'm like, for what? He was just more hurt. Like, he's like, Nicky was like a father to me. It was the betrayal for me, you know? That's what hurt me the most. You made the rules to the council. We all live by your rules and your regulation. For you to turn around and to betray everybody, and you trying to say like it was like a woman at the time. It wasn't about no woman. You didn't want to do that time.
Guy focused on reforming himself while he was in prison. He earned his associates, bachelor's, and master's.
You know, that's the first time I've heard the recordings of Nicky Barnes actually talking to the FBI agent. He was telling on her as well, and she still got murdered. But as crazy as it sounds, you're talking about 82, 83. The guy he wound up telling on was Mark Ryder, or Redder. He has an 88, 89 case. No, 87, 88 case, an 88 case. He testified against him. That was purely out of, yo, you tried to, you know what I'm saying? Like, was it over her or was it over, oh, you tried to violate? Nicky was old, man. Remember, a lot of these guys, that's why they get into the bag, the heavy bag. Most of those dudes was 2-3 strikes in anyway. So you know when they got knocked off, it was like, listen, you're gonna do the rest of your life in jail, and that's where the, you know, everybody ain't built the same, man. But this is intense right here, because now listening to people speak, hearing things well versed. Yo, Nicky really, Nicky, this is crazy. So, Nicky told on him and her. She had to be out on bail and she died. And the narrative about her dying with the people that's testifying against Mark, the Italian guy, is, he killed her not because they thought she was going to cooperate against them, is because of Nicky Barnes cooperating. But this is crazy. In the 80s, early 80s. But Nicky Barnes really was cooperating. So it goes to show you the strong ties between the streets and the police. I won't say police, law enforcement. Because every time, it don't have to be a cop. It could be a parole officer. It could be an administrator. It could be somebody who works typing at the federal building. It could be anybody. But those ties are putting you on to, such and such is telling. He's cooperating. Now, years later, Brother Mark, this is actually good, man. Shout out to because it was, I believe, Dapper Dan who said his man's James Jackson. Could be wrong, but he said James Jackson was a big drug dealer in Harlem. People don't know he did a lot of things, but he never went into the specifics who he was. So what made me do, I was doing my due diligence, is when I put Jackson, James Jackson, that came up. Wait a minute, whoa. Now, out of all that they said that he told on Guy Fisher for, he told on this guy too. Let me get to him. Now, Pistol Pete's father was his co-defendant. Actually, you know what I'm saying, was his co-defendant. Now, this is April 15th, 2022. Agent NYC Mobster still poses threat to law enforcement, needs to stay locked up. The feds. Boom, the New York Post. This is the man with the DA. That's him. You know what I'm saying? This is Mr. Mark Ritter. Hold on, let's get to the get down. Once a killer, always a killer, the feds say. Prosecutors want to keep an agent New York City gangster locked up for life. A law enforcement agent is worried that the mobster will seek revenge against G-Men if he gets out, but a judge wants to hear from the investigator before he decides. Former Gambino crime family associate Mark Ryder, 74, was sent away in 1988 for running one of the city's biggest heroin dealing operations and ordering 3 murders to protect his racket. During his time behind bars, he was photographed posing as a singer in a mobbed-up mob rock band at California's Lompoc Federal Prison, along with the late Colombo family boss Carmine Jr. Prosecco, Gambino family hitman Anthony Center, and the late Joseph R. Russo, a killer for New England's Patricia family. But since that pic was shot in 1990, Ritter has been beset by health problems and now suffers from conditions including obscenity, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol. According to Manhattan federal court papers filed in support of his request for compassionate release. Man wants compassionate release. Even though, forget the bodies, all the harm destruction he has committed in our communities. But prosecutors, however, contend that Ryder, who's locked up at a low-security federal prison near Allenwood, PA, deserves to rot there because of the nature and circumstances of his crime, which clearly involves serious and extreme violence. In addition, U.S. Attorney Timothy Capazzi wrote he was contacted by an agent who assisted with the investigation of Ritter, who expressed serious concerns about the possibility of retribution against law enforcement and those who aided law enforcement in the defendant's prosecution should the defendant be released. Such concerns are understandable given the defendant's offense conduct, which include ordering multiple murders, including the murder of the cooperator, Capazzi said. In an order handed down last week, Manhattan federal judge Vernon Broderick denied Ritter's request for a hearing with testimony from the unidentified agent, but said, to be clear, I take any possibility of violence against members of law enforcement as a serious issue. So all the money he took in the world, he can't seem to get out of jail. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if they let him out, but this is him, younger years. Broderick then gave prosecutors a Thursday's deadline to submit an affidavit identifying the agent and spelling out the specific concerns about any individuals whom the defendant might harm and how he might harm them if the defendant were released, including any and all basis for the agent's concerns. This is him in this head thing with that DA. He is a different man than he was 35 years ago, as his lawyer says. He has what come with the game is, I guess a lot of his convictions, some of them was based off of him killing people that was cooperated against him, or he thought was cooperating, or put his name in their mouth to law enforcement. They bring it back to be well due diligence. Shameeka, she wasn't as innocent as they said in the recording. They said that she was somewhat still part of the Nicky Barnes organization, and when he told on her and Guy Fisher, she was sort of tied up, so she wasn't that innocent, but she didn't pass away because they thought she was telling. They're saying that she passed away because Nicky was telling. But even though he told on her, but you know what I'm saying? That's a story that was told. Nicky Barnes told against the Mark Ryder guy. This is a different time, a different era, and actually, this is the era of hip-hop moving around the 5 boroughs, because while this was going on, you had guys writing graffiti, you had guys breakdancing, you had the block parties, and you had all the Zulu Nations and the Ball Busters and the so on and so on. Just to be a little clear here, you know what I'm saying? So, you'd be surprised the ties that these hand-on groups had to some of our community. Some of these stamps, like E.T., they say he was a part of, he was involved with the Red Apple Dope stamp, and so on and so on. Certain stamps that was popular at that time. Just like we have the 9.5s, the checkmates, the parole violator, the redundants, the obsession. Certain stamps make a lot of money. So, allegedly, like I say allegedly, you got dudes fighting for their freedom. But this is a show, brought me back to my time in my era growing up in New York City. I've seen a lot of things growing up in East Harlem, right by, the Guardia House, 116th. There's a liquor store, there's be mad dope fiends over there. Just being a kid, right by Jefferson. Shout out to Jeff, my man Christian and all of them. Let me get to the get down. So, growing up, this is a different time, man. This is a different time in New York City. And, we appreciate the better things in life. This is the era where the hand-on dealer was like number one. Like, if you want to say rappers want to be like drug dealers, you want more say the rappers want to be like the hand-on dudes. They had the Rolls Royces and the big cars. They just trickled down to the crack era. But the original rap guys, they was dancing, not all of them, but some of them was dancing like the village people, you know what I'm saying? But not all of them. Yeah, so here we go. So what it do, man. I think I got it on here. That's what I got it on. This was definitely rest in peace to Latin King Benny. You know what I'm saying? Definitely rest in peace to him, man. OG. This is sort of what New York was looking like during those eras. This was 1977. Hamron was on an all-time high. This is Harlem, old Harlem, right? Hamron was an all-time high back then. This is the era we talking about. This is what niggas was running around doing. This is that era. This wasn't the crack era right here. 1976 Harlem. This is what the streets was looking like for those that's not from New York. This is that Hamron era. 1981. That's what they're talking about. This is graffiti. So all this was going on, doing all this drug trades. And another culture moving around, which is called hip hop now, but it's a different culture of hip hop. So with that being said, man, I appreciate those that woke up with me this morning. Check this out. Go check out Unique Mecca Audio interview on Vlad, and plus check out all his content. Unique Mecca Audio, his prison stories. He did over 20-some odd years in the federal penitentiary, so he moved around and know a bunch of good stories. So with that being said, I want you guys to have a blessed morning. We actually had a chance to hear Nicky Barnes talking to a federal investigator, and it basically was the Shameeka situation, and boom, boom, boom. But he also told on the guy that killed Shameeka, unless he put the hit out that got a shot. Nicky was dirty, dingy, and dangerous. Love was an MNF. You see, he even sent his wife to jail for a dime. I think a dime. This is like a dime in the feds. His actual wife got kids by him. You know what I'm saying? So he knew better. Nicky was probably like in his 40s when he got caught. But he did this. This is what he did. This is what the greatest hustler in the world does. And what's his name? Jimmy Carter put the beam on his forehead. You know what I'm saying? He was, what you call food back then, he was on a worldwide plate by Jimmy Carter. Because this fool does this. This is when you went too far. Hold on. I'm going to show you the picture. This what this fool does, man. This is what this y'all say niggas do too much on IG. No, this is what this fool does. Nicky Barnes. He writes, this is Nicky Barnes. The police say he may be Harlem's biggest drug dealer, but can they prove it? Yeah, they wind up doing it. That caught the eye of the great Jimmy Carter. The great Jimmy Carter said he's gonna be one of our RICO victims. He probably one of the first black, not one of the first ones, but we're gonna make an example with him. That's exactly what happened. We're gonna go after him. No matter how much police he paid off, man, you know you can't play with the president. You don't. The president put that meal ticket on him. He said, "Oh, you want to be on Time Magazine? You a plate." He fooled. He said the kite to the U.S. attorney, to judges, listen more or less, two or less, whatever codes they were spitting back then, doing all that meat. Who knows? Get him. Exactly. And he got over 20 out the nigga. Don't get it. All that telling, he ain't get the Assembly Bull 5-year deal. He did like 20-something joints. He took down like a good 50, 60 niggas. I heard in MCC they had the Nicky Barnes unit. He still did like 20-something odd years. Well, with that being said, man, appreciate y'all for waking up. Do your due diligence. Have a blessed day. Tomorrow, Thanksgiving. Enjoy it. Enjoy life. Enjoy the world, you heard? Let's give a little bit of old Harlem, man. We'll keep with the OGs sometime. Go learn something, man. It's a different time. You know what I'm saying? That being said, shout out to Spanish Harlem, man. Where I'm from, East Harlem, the East Side. And definitely shout out to Washington, Lexington. My man Ant White, you know, rest in peace, Poochie, and all the bubbles. And you know, dudes on my block, 99 from Lexington, Hilltop, the PT 131 crew, the East Side, Lynch Mall, the Rush Mob, and all that. You heard? Dead End Kids, East Army, Flow Boys, Jeff Maher, East Side Lynch Mall on 12th. What? FTW, FEB, Mad Jack was popping, holler at me, what? Mr. White Bills from Forster, we see you, baby, 12th Street. You know what I'm saying? With that being said, me and Ron Bulls, we see you, Harlem in the building, we here. That being said, my favorite Puerto Rican from 100th Street, Puerto Rican. I mean, Ed Medina from Washington, my man Ari Uno Chola, Ari Uno, you know, at 131 too, my man Crazy, my man John Ramundi, Sonny and all of them, you know what I'm saying? That being said, have a blessed morning. I gotta go. Peace. Yo, hold on. Shout out to Wifey. St. Louis, West Side St. Louis, and her son, Scoop Doggy Dog. That being said, peace.